Hi everyone, I'm going to take a break from my usual AT adventure updates and to do a post for my Sunday devotionals, and I'm going to continue reading from my As Fresh as Daisies devotional that I wrote. But instead of reading one of the devotions, I'm just going to read the notes from the author so you have the background on how my book came to be. And then I will do future posts reading from each of the devotionals that I've written for each Sunday. So I already read the one about As Fresh as Daisies, but like I said, I'm just going to read my notes from the author. And that way, if you don't want to purchase the book or don't have a means to purchase the book, if you follow along on my Sunday devotions, after the 40 weeks, you will have completed the As Fresh as Daisies. God has a plan for each one of us. We don't always know what that plan is, or when we do figure out His plan, we don't like it. We want His plan to be what we think it should be. We go on forcing our will into our lives, usually without much success. Once we learn that His way will give us more peace and happiness than we could ever aspire to by ourselves, it is easier to submit to His will. In fact, we will crave it. It takes a lot of growing pains to reach the point of allowing God complete control. It doesn't happen all at once. For me, letting go of control evolved over time and is still taking shape. I like to determine the when, where, how, and with whom I do things. I can remember the distinct moment when I started hearing what God wanted from me and at a particular time in my life. I was at a conference with my husband Bruce. The keynote address focused on reaching one's goals. I was working on a dream board in our hotel room, and suddenly a voice in my head shouted at me to call our parish priest and tell him I would fulfill the faith formation coordinator position. Really? Nowhere on the list I was making had I allotted time to teach Sunday school. Sure, I had a degree in education, and I was faithful, but I had no clue how to teach it to others. Or did I want to devote such time to doing so? I did not think I was good enough role model to inspire our youth to seek God. But I took a leap of faith and made the call. God's desires for some aren't a one-and-done deal. He can change your calling as quickly as He gives it to you. So if you are like me, you will have many hats to get His will done. We all have different gifts and talents. God knows that. He gave them to us. He also knows our personalities vary as the grains of sand. I appreciate the fact I have had many hats because I get easily bored with doing the same thing. I used to think I had a commitment phobia or was lazy because I would bounce from one position to another. 4 years seemed to be my threshold for dedication. Then I'd be off to a new venture or task. But growth in my spiritual life taught me that I wasn't being flighty. God had different plans for me at different times in my life. His will in various ways at various times. My strength in personal warfare is far from where I'd like it to be. I struggle daily in keeping the faith. I can continue to have battles with the voices in my head telling me what I should do. But as I grow deeper in my faith through daily and often not so daily devotions, I can better distinguish when that voice is God's will and not my own. When I set out for a 6-month hike of the Appalachian Trail in 2015, little did I know it would change my life. I struggled with the notion that taking off and leaving my family was selfish. But as the weeks went by and the trail tore me down only to build me back up, I realized that hiking the trail had been a friend's idea I had grabbed a hold of, but it was just another way God was going to use me to do His will. If it wasn't for that hike, I would not be writing devotions that I hope will in some way touch your heart. Not my way, but His will. Through hiking the Appalachian Trail is a grueling and arduous undertaking. The journey takes an average of 6 months to complete. Day after day, the only task is getting from point A to point B. Set up camp, eat, sleep, and repeat. Boredom and misery can overtake one's joy fast. It's easy to let the yuck of the trip spoil everything. In fact, for a while on my first hike, all I did was complain. I'm a positive person by nature. I hate the fact that when I complained so much, I told myself to stop the violin or go home. Well, to keep from going down the rabbit hole of woe me, I forced myself to see the beauty in the little things. I always enjoyed photography, so I went to great lengths to capture the littlest details of the hike, not escaping my lens. Instead of dwelling on the rain, cold, pain, hunger, and whatever unpleasant thing was taking place, I sought the joy of a new flower, a wispy cloud, sun rays through the pines, a weird-looking insect, a songbird, and more. I started giving praise to God for letting me be there to experience it. Before I realized it, I even was giving praise for the rain, the heat, the bugs, and the other not-so-environmental factors. Together with my photos and seeing the beauty in the little things, I put together this book of devotions inspired by the Appalachian Trail. My prayer for you is, if you have your own violin, blocking out what you truly want to hear in life, you will be able to silence the unwanted notes of your journey through the wilderness of this 40-day self-guided retreat. And so that's how my book of As Fresh as Daisies came to be. It's inspired by my first Appalachian Trail through hike and the photos that I took while doing so. And I hope you'll continue to follow along on my Sunday devotions as I read each of these in the continuing Sundays that follow. Happy hiking and God bless.